Everybody, and welcome back to Old Spook Lane Creepy Chat, where we're discussing about Tim Burton films for Tim Burton Month on Creepy Chat. I am Patricia, and I am here with Arun Mehta from the Arun Mehta Show.
Yeah, I'm here from Arun Mehta Town.
Yes, we're here in Arun Mehta Town, where we have decorations of footballs and blue and white everywhere. So welcome.
Oh, well, we're not in Old School Lane Town this time?
Yeah, I guess we are in Old School Lane Town this time. Sure. Our towns are intertwined with each other at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, so today we're going to be discussing about the 1993 animated film The Nightmare Before Christmas. And I think at this point in time, there's no need for an introduction on this film because pretty much everybody knows about it.
So, should we get the really tired question out of the way? Is this a Halloween movie or a Christmas movie?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question because the answer is yes.
Yes. And, I think this is actually this Nightmare Before Christmas is actually a really great idea on paper. Let's have a movie where you can play it at Halloween, but you can also play it at Christmas as well. It basically lasts like a lot longer than a Christmas movie and a lot longer than Halloween movie. It lasts like a couple of months.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have that perfect alignment where you have, a slew of really popular holidays. You have Halloween, you have Christmas. You essentially have 3 months that you can be able to play with. And I think that that's brilliant because you can show this for Halloween because it literally begins in Halloween. And then you could show it around in Christmas because the movie ends around Christmas time. So, wow, we can be able to have a bigger bang for our buck.
Yeah, I mean, so some people who will be listening, I mean, do we really need to tell you what The Nightmare Before Christmas is? Really?
I'm sure for the two of you who have no idea what this movie is about, it's about Jack Skellington, the Pumpkin King, and he lives in a town called Halloween Town, where pretty much everything is spooky and scary, and they take Halloween very, very seriously. But Jack Skellington becomes bored of the whole thing, so he wanders around and stumbles into Christmas Town, where everything is much more lighter and happier and cheerier, and people are getting ready for Christmas. He gets inspired by it. He wants to bring Christmas into Halloween Town. He wants to spread it to the entire world, and then disaster ensues. So yeah, I would say pretty much everybody knows about this movie. I mean, 30 years ago, pretty much it was pretty much a cult following. Like, it didn't really get a lot of promotion from Disney because they were fearing that this would be a little bit too scary to show on the Disney banner, especially since they were in the Renaissance era. So this
Disney promotion executives, you all deserve to be fired.
Yeah, I mean, that's why they decided to release it under the Touchstone banner as opposed to the Disney banner.
And why though? Like, nowadays, like, they recognize it as like one of the major Disney properties. There's even the fact they're even like, got both Sally and Jack Skellington at the Disney parks.
Exactly. Like, yeah. And you cannot tell me that you have never been to a Hot Topic and you have not seen Jack Skellington, Sally, Oogie Boogie, or anything Nightmare Before Christmas in there. I mean, that's like saying you've never seen any figurines or t-shirts of Invader Zim. You're lying.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to like change the subject a little bit, but it kind of makes me wonder where, shows like The Owl House and Amphibia are going to be in like, 20, 30 years time. Don't you think? Like, because The Nightmare Before Christmas was somewhat looked down on at the beginning, but then, years later now, it's a phenomenon. to the point where,
Exactly.
like, we've even had like a sequel book recently released a year ago.
Yeah,
Pretty
you're right. It used to be the case in which that Nightmare Before Christmas was a cult film. Like, it got a lot of people really tuning into it, but the mainstream audience didn't really seem to care about it or even know about it. But then over a decade later, when Disney decided to finally acknowledge that, hey, Nightmare Before Christmas was always a Disney film, guys, and then
Yeah,
they started
wink.
releasing it everywhere. They re-released the movie in theaters. They had Marilyn Manson of all people do a re-recording of This Is Halloween, and then you had various video games. You had more merchandise of it. You had the Halloween Town and Christmas Town featured in the Kingdom Hearts games. So yeah, it became massive around the
Well, do
2000s.
you remember
And
when you and I went to Epcot and I managed to get like a Jack Skellington like key ring for my sister?
yes,
Yeah, exactly. So like this, I mean, even to this day, they are still releasing Nightmare Before Christmas merchandise, and it's still out there as well.
yes, it
It's
is
just
still
it's
out there. They re-release it every so often. They have stage performances of Nightmare Before Christmas where they bring the cast to sing the songs from the movie. It's still a major phenomenon. Even 30 years later, it feels like it hasn't left.
Yeah, it's so hard to describe how, basically the Night Before Christmas went to virtually like nothing to, like it being like a major part of like Disney in like, the space of like, a couple of years, effectively. And
Yeah.
it still lasted up until this now. And when did the Night Before Christmas get released? It was like, it was in 1993,
Yes.
1994, pretty much,
Yeah.
well, even it came out in 1993 in the United States, but then came out in 1994 in the United Kingdom. It came out a year later,
Mm-hmm.
effectively. Yeah.
And it's a stop motion animated film, which is very akin to a lot of Rankin Bass Christmas specials that I told you about several years ago when we started watching various shorts together. I showed you the Year Without a Santa Claus, and Santa Claus is coming to town for the very first time. And I was introducing you about that Rankin Bass around the 60s all the way through the 80s that they made these stop motion Christmas specials. And it's still to this day a staple in our television programs. And essentially Tim Burton was influenced from a poem that he wrote, and he wanted to adapt it into a Christmas special very similar to Rankin Bass. But then after a while it became such a major production that they decided to release it into theaters. And of course Disney was like, yeah, I mean, you're fine, but we think that under the Disney banner, it probably wouldn't fly. So let's release it under Touchstone, which Touchstone is for Disney films that are essentially more geared for like teenagers and adults. So yeah, it was released there, and it gotten some recognition in the box office and in the Academy Awards, but yeah, it didn't become a major hit until like over a decade later. And I would say that when looking back on it, it's still a fantastic film to watch.
hmm And one thing I find interesting is that in this movie, I mean, don't get me wrong, like, there's always been characters who like do speaking voices, and there's also characters who like do the singing voices. Danny Elfman actually did the singing voice of Jack Skellington in
Mm-hmm.
this, and Chris Sarandon actually did just the acting parts
Yes.
for Jack in this. And but Catherine O'Hara actually did like the whole thing, like she did the speaking bits, and also she did the musical numbers too.
Yes,
And
and this would be and we talked about Catherine O'Hara last time because she was Mrs. Dietz in Beetlejuice, and yeah, I would say that this is a massive departure. Whereas Mrs. Dietz was just like really stuck up with her art and kind of not caring about what Lydia was saying. All she cares about is just expressing her art, even though that it was awful. To somebody who is just this very timid yet lovable ragdoll. I think that her range is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, but mind you, when it comes to '90s movies, people kind of always kind of put her as Kate McAllister in Home Alone, and not
Yeah,
really like put her as
it's true. Yeah, she
like
was good
Kevin.
in the she. Yeah, it's true. Catherine O'Hara was synonymous with the Home Alone movies in the 90s, which is perfect because, now Catherine O'Hara pretty much has like a major stake on Christmas movies. If you're not watching her in Nightmare Before Christmas, you're watching her in Home Alone 1 and Home Alone 2 Lost in New York.
No, she actually is synonymous with Christmas movies when you really think about it.
She is. That's genius.
Yeah.
I'm sure her residuals are up the roof when Christmas comes about.
Yeah, but Sally, you can really, I think it was one of my favorite characters in the movie. I think
I agree.
You can really
she's really
sympathize with her. Like, she's been kept in like a laboratory by this maniac doctor who just wants to basically just be her servant and be nothing else. And but she aspires to be more. She she wants to be out in the world and wants to see what's going on and everything like that. But she feels like held back, and it isn't until she finally tries the patience that he ends up taking her advice and creating his own wife. Pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. Again, going into the whole Frankenstein thing about Frankenstein wants to create the monster a wife so that he can be able to be more settled and not go around and kill people. So yeah, I think it's actually really interesting that Sally has the balls to constantly poison her creator just so that she can be able to go out into the world and just express herself and be free. So you know what? Kudos for that, because usually characters like this would just be like, oh, I'm just stuck in this tower. I don't know what to do. I can't escape. I can't be free. She's like, screw that. I'm just going to go off and poison my creator with deadly nightshade and just go out there. And while he sleeps, I'm just going to go around and be free. And then, oh no, she's locked in her room. What is she going to do? I'm just going to go out through the window.
Yeah, technically speaking, now that after the book, she's actually like the queen of Halloween. So it makes me wonder, she ends up in the Disney Royal Court. She's gonna stick out like a sore thumb, isn't she?
Yeah, I'm surprised at that. It's like, we have the Pumpkin King. So what does that make her? Would that make her the ragdoll?
Well, she's married. She's now married. It's in canon. She's now married to Jack Skellington. So that makes her the Pumpkin Queen, effectively.
Yeah, I'm surprised that when we think about queens in Disney, she's not like right up there.
No, she's a queen to a lot of people.
I guess that's true.
Yeah, but let's focus on Jack Skellington for a second, because he is a really fascinating character, because he's he is really good at what he does. He is the king of Halloween, and he makes Halloween better and better and better every single year. At least that's according to the mayor. And but then he realizes that he's getting bored of all of this, and he wants a departure from where this is going, and this is where he goes to Christmas Town.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm sure that we all go through that, where, we try to better ourselves every single time that we have the opportunity to do it. But then after a while, we go through creative burnout, or we just completely have no ideas on how we can be able to make it better, or we are bored with it. We're just saying, this is mundane. I want to do something different, but everybody expects the same thing over and over and over again. So
yeah, I mean, our idea of we're bored and want to do something else doesn't involve us overtaking an entire holiday.
I guess not. No, we've never gone to that extreme.
Yeah.
And we're hoping not to.
In a way, whereas Jack Skellington comes across as a bit of he's a protagonist of a movie. In a way, he does villainous things when you think about it. He kidnaps Santa Claus and he gets some henchmen to do it, and then after that, he basically takes over the holiday, and without even asking Santa Claus that he wants to do Christmas this year instead of him. Pretty much.
I take it that he's trying to do it with the goodness of trying to shake things up for his town, and he wants to be able to spread his own version of cheer to the world. But yeah, his actions are awful. Hiring, Barrel, Lock, and Shock to kidnap Santa Claus, bring him over to Oogie Boogie, and then essentially almost killing him, making Christmas canceled forever. And then everybody is just frightened of all the presents that he's leaving behind. Yeah, I mean, even though that Jack is trying to do good, he's essentially trying to do bad. So he's both our hero and our villain at the same time.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing about Jack is that I think he has this belief of invincibility in a way. He just thinks, oh well, I can easily do Christmas. I can easily just go in there and just make people happy at Christmas time. When clearly he doesn't understand what Christmas actually is.
No,
in a way. And
he ends up trying to do scientific experiments to find out what Christmas is. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, it's just that Christmas doesn't actually in a way when you think about it he doesn't really even learn what the Christmas is at the very end of it all yeah like all the other like Christmas movies where you have the downtrodden even like say for example Scrooge for example who is just like a massive begrudgeon and just like treats people really horribly and then if he ends up being visited by free spirits and he starts to kind of realize what Christmas is kind of all about, at that time. And so, where you have movies that are sort of like that go off, A Christmas Carol in a way. But, Jack doesn't, kind of realize that in the movie. I think he just realized that, oh, yeah, he's really good at what he does and he should stick to doing what he's good at.
Yeah,
And
and also the Grinch learned a very similar lesson as well, in which, the Grinch hated Christmas for all the noise, 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 and all the people who are just like constantly cheering and all that kind of stuff. And then finally he realizes that Christmas does not, mean, getting things for Christmas or, all the Christmas feasts and all the singing and all the decorations and all that stuff. Christmas means a whole lot more. And that's when, the Grinch's heart grows three sizes that day. So, yeah, even he knows what the meaning of Christmas is. Scrooge knows what the meaning of Christmas is, but Jack never does.
yeah. And so, Glenn Shaddix, he plays the mayor of Halloween Town, and he is basically a caricature of a politician. He's two-faced, he can't do anything himself. He always has to rely on Jack to say, "What do I do to make people happy in Halloween Town?" He's effectively Jack's underling, if you will. He just says, "Oh yeah, that's a great idea, Jack." He's a massive yes man as well. Oh, good grief, he is more real, I think, of everything I've Halloween Town, I think, compared to all the other characters.
Yes.
Much. Yeah.
And I also really enjoy all of the just the minor characters who basically are sprinkled around Halloween Town because they are the perfect facets of what you expect to see for any horror film. You have vampires, you have the Wolfman, you have mummies, you have witches. So yeah, they're all sprinkled in there and they all each have their distinct personalities.
By the way, guess who plays Locke in the Oogie Boogie Gang?
Yes, right. That's Paul Rubens. Yes.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense because Paul would not only be in Pee-wee's Big Adventure, obviously, but he was also the Penguin's father in Batman Returns, and he was also Locke, and this would be his last performance in a Tim Burton film.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but speaking of which, there's a lot of other major people who were previously in, a lot of Tim Burton films that would appear in, Nightmare Before Christmas. As we mentioned before, we have Catherine O'Hara, and we also have, obviously, Danny Elfman. I mean, Danny Elfman is probably the major star in Nightmare Before Christmas because not only does he do the music, not only does he perform as Jack, but he also sings for Jack. So, yeah, I mean, his music is essentially the one that carries throughout the course of the film. This is Tim Burton's first musical, and it's amazing. The songs are fantastic.
Well, before we get into the music, I also want to highlight that Sir Patrick Stewart is also the narrator for the prologue and the epilogue of the movie.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, he does that too. But yeah, going back into the music is that I mean, this is one of the movies I think that on the face of it, it is a Halloween / Christmas movie, but in a way, it's right in the heart of it, it is a wonderful musical. Is there one musical number in the Nightmare Before Christmas that you could say, well, yeah, we could do without this song number? There
Absolutely
isn't.
Not.
Every single one of them fits, and every single one of them carries the story. Effectively, which is a great thing for a musical. Unfortunately, you have those we've been through a lot of movies, unfortunately, where there's been a lot of throwaway song numbers that just kind of just shoehorned in there, just to say, oh, just to kind of pass time in the movie.
Yeah, and those are from people who clearly do not understand why music is in a movie in the first place. I talked about this many times whenever that we talk about Disney movies, but around the 90s, when it was during the Renaissance period, there were a lot of films that were trying to emulate Disney by adding in songs. But they don't understand that the reason why the songs are added in the first place is for exposition, character development, and continuing the story. When people add songs for the sake of just adding songs, it drags the story and it feels pointless. So the fact that there's no useless songs in here, the fact that every single song is able to build up the characters and continue the story arc is fantastic. Every single song is great. You can listen to it by its own merits, and you can listen to it as like moments from the movie. It's a soundtrack that has stood the test of time.
Yeah. I mean, if we had to pick out, I mean, if we were like held at gunpoint and we had to pick out a weak, the weakest song number in The Nightmare Before Christmas, which one do you think it would be?
It's actually really interesting because I mean, I'm trying to think about what would be like the weakest song amongst the lot because what I mean, what is your choice?
Kidnap the Santa Claus? Do you think that was
Yeah,
necessary?
I would agree. Yeah.
Yeah, because like it's like Jack Skellington already told you what to do. Like why are you making up race to kill him? I mean, on top of that as well, like they you'd only do that if you're like coming across as the villains. But at the very end of the movie, they travel back with Jack. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, I think they're trick or treaters. They are supposed to be like the ones who help, but then they're the ones who harm. And they work for Oogie Boogie, who's the main villain of this story. So they're kind of like they're kind of like the trio that you shouldn't even trust. Even though that they seem really nice and they're little kids, they just cause a whole bunch of mayhem and mischief.
Yeah, but I just think that's I think that's one thing I think in the movie which I always kind of bother me a little bit. Like Jack Skellington is going to hire these people to kidnap Santa Claus. Now I don't know if it's just the fact that maybe they are the only ones who are able to actually travel through doors, or maybe they're like the only ones who can actually pull this off without screwing it up. I don't know. But I mean, clearly they get. I mean, they on the second attempt they actually do get him. But
yeah,
I mean,
because the first attempt they kidnapped the Easter Bunny.
The Easter Bunny, exactly, yeah. But it kind of makes me kind of confused. Like, why would he rely on these three people to kidnap Santa Claus when obviously they've never been through the doors, or they've never like known who Santa Claus is, or like now that they seem to know a well-known they pretty much work for a gangster effectively in Oogie Boogie. When you think about it, like that part of the story kind of makes not much sense, in my opinion.
Yeah, it is kind of strange, but I guess this is supposed to be like a ploy for Jack to focus on helping the people of Halloween Town get ready for Christmas because it takes them a long time for them to do it. Like, for Jack, it took him like what, one night for him to go from Christmas Town to Halloween Town, but it took them almost 2 weeks for them to go over to from Halloween to Christmas Town, kidnap Santa Claus, and then bring him back.
And also, they kidnapped him on the eve of Christmas as well.
Yeah, they kidnapped him on Christmas Eve. Then they bring him over to Oogie Boogie, and then Oogie Boogie's about to boil him up so he can eat him. Merry Christmas, everybody!
Okay, yeah. What do we think of our antagonist in this movie, or the Oogie Boogie himself?
Yeah, he's delightfully over the top. Ken Page does a fantastic job of performing as him. I know that he kind of shows up a little bit toward the beginning of the movie, but yeah, he's not very prominent as our main bad guy. Like I said, Jack works as both the villain and the hero.
Yeah, like it just like I would like to have heard more explanation about the Oogie Boogie. Like, where did he come from? Like, why does he eat bugs? Like, what is the backstory of like why he is evil and why does he gamble so much?
I mean, he's supposed to be the boogeyman. I know about that. But yeah, there's not really much to it other than, okay, he's the boogeyman. Bugs are creepy and, he wears it over his sack. And the whole gambling thing, I'm not sure about that either.
Yeah, like he's just like, what? I mean, like, what, did he go to Vegas at one point? He's like, yeah, that's the type of life I want to lead. Like,
yeah,
does Las Vegas have Las Vegas, Nevada having a door in this world would not surprise me whatsoever. Would it surprise you?
No, not really.
Okay. In regards to the way that, I mean, obviously it's stop motion animation, and I think it still holds up to this day. It definitely does. Like, the one thing I always find really amazing is that they could have like flashing lights and smoke and like all other like going off like the surfaces or like the moving characters. And I thought, wow, that must have been so hard to do. Like do like all those effects while also doing stop motion at the same time. It must have been pretty hard to do. To pull all that off. And I
Yeah,
thought,
not to mention that there are over 300 faces for Jack alone. So imagine all of the work that they had to do for everything else, like the lighting, like the designs of each of the towns and the snow effects, the wind and the leaves falling down and just everything. Like a lot of this clearly was put in a lot of effort and work into it.
I just find like the "What Have I Done" scene where like Jack Skellington's like in the graveyard after being shot down by the military, and you see him like he's like laid out on this angel, and the camera is spinning around, and like there's all these light effects, and like he's got to move around too, and he's also he obviously the whole numbers going on while that whole scene. I thought that scene was amazing.
Yeah.
I thought. Yeah,
Yeah, and of course, a lot of you have a lot of angles that they're able to play around with. Usually, when it comes to stop motion, it's very rigid and limited. But in this one, they're able to play off so much with different presentations on what they are able to do with stop motion. They're able to have pans, they're able to have widened shots, they're able to have close-up shots, and it's all done very smoothly and very cinematic. So it kind of makes you forget that it is a stop motion animated film.
Yeah, and the one thing I really love about the camera work is that it's very good at making you feel happy. It's very good at making you feel curious. It's making very good at making you, at one point it makes you feel ill as well. Like, do you remember the scene when Sally puts the frog's breath into the cauldron? And like all of a sudden, like it's too bitter, and the camera starts to rock, like while she's like stumbling around because like it's making her feel ill as well, and you start to feel ill with her. Like that's great.
It
I
is
think
great.
that's fantastic camera work in my opinion.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that this movie was able to set a new standard into how you should present a stop motion animated film. And yeah, Henry Selick was the director of this. And the reason why was because Tim Burton was too busy working on Batman Returns for him to fully commit into directing Nightmare Before Christmas. So Henry Selick was able to learn a lot from Nightmare Before Christmas because afterwards he would do James and the Giant Peach and Coraline.
Well, I mean, like, maybe more for James of the Giant Peach. Sorry, no, maybe more for Coraline. In regards to James of the Giant Peach, I'm not too sure. I enjoy enjoy all that movie too much. Well, that's
Fair
just me.
enough.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Like, we've talked about James of the Giant Peach in the past, haven't we? And we've
We
talked about
did
its
during the Roald Dahl retrospective.
yeah,
So
we talked about its pros and cons and everything like that. But I prefer Coraline. I mean, by the way, there's a lot of people in the chat in comments who have been asking when are we going to start doing Coraline, and I'll just say this: like, we will get to it eventually.
yes,
So.
we will get to it eventually, but who knows? Maybe we'll even cover it next year. But in the meanwhile, we're talking about Night Before Christmas.
Mm-hmm. And Henry Selick does an incredible job with this movie. I think,
Mm-hmm.
like I think he gets what this movie is. He gets where, the two worlds are in regards to like the Christmas and Halloween. He blends them very well together. And he's very good at, focusing into Jack Skellington's curiosity, his ego, if you will, and like, his getting the balance right between making Jack Skellington a likable character, but at the same time realizing that he's doing a lot wrong at the same time. And then also making Sally, as very sympathetic as possible and like in her situation and the way that she gets framed in all of this as well. And I think the way that Henry does this movie, I think is just top notch. It's absolutely
I do agree. Yeah, he's definitely one of those guys who is quality over quantity, where he's only done a handful of films over his entire career. He did Nightmare Before Christmas, he did James and the Giant Peach, he did Monkey Bone, which I've seen that movie many years ago with Decker and Creepy, and it's weird. It's very very weird. But you know what? There's some moments in the stop motion which is cool, but still, it's probably his weakest film he's ever done. Coraline is probably like one of his best films he's ever done. It's a contender on whether Christmas or Coraline is his best work. And I have never seen Wendell and Wild. I want to. I heard about it, talked in depth last year when it came out, but I still haven't seen it. And I know that he's working on some other stuff. I think he's going to be working on a TV adaptation of Little Nightmares, which will be really interesting. So yeah, Henry Selick is one of those guys who definitely prefers quality over quantity.
I'm really glad you say quality over quantity because this movie is only 76 minutes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's literally just less than an hour and 20 minutes, yet at the same time it's just so jam-packed with so much stuff that you don't feel like you're cheapened or unsatisfied.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I feel like some scenes go a bit too quickly, and I feel like need a bit more fleshing out. There would have been some more times where I would have liked to have seen, some concentration a little bit more. I think example would be, the interaction. There's not actually that much interactions between, Jack Skellington and Sally if you really think about it.
Yeah, you're right,
there's only.
because I mean, they barely show up together, even though that we're supposed to believe that they're meant to be together.
Yeah, and also I'm really surprised that Jack Skellington isn't like. I mean, I guess because he's so caught up in his imagination over Christmas that he kind of glosses over like Sally's plight in a way, like the fact
Yeah,
that
the only thing
yeah.
that he wants from Sally is to make him a Christmas outfit, very similar to Santa Claus.
Yeah, and well, he must think also that she's on his side anyway, even though she has obviously massive reservations because of what do you think of, like the idea that she had a vision of like that something was going to go wrong? Like where did the vision come from when you
I
think
guess
about
that
it?
yeah, that's true because I don't know, maybe rag dolls, or maybe like practice with voodoo magic, that maybe she thinks that she's able to have vision powers. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think maybe again I've not read the 2022 book, so you'll have to forgive me if there's more fleshing out of the Sally character that I'm not aware of. I'm only working based on what the movie gives me,
Yeah,
effectively. And what,
we still haven't read
yeah.
any of the books, which
But
obviously.
again, we go back to our rule where it's like the movie shouldn't have to require any studying or like any back knowledge before obviously being presented to us. Like the movie should explain itself effectively.
Yeah, exactly. And also, it's actually interesting because I even heard something last week where Henry Selick was being interviewed on the Hollywood Reporter, that he would love to work on a prequel where Jack Skellington becomes the Pumpkin King. I would love to see that.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see it too, and I don't know, given the people have been talking to me about the recent book that's came out. I mean, would that be a good adaptation for a sequel?
I
I
think it
think,
would, yeah.
yeah, I think I wouldn't be opposed to that.
Yeah,
So, and
it's very similar to how Avatar: The Last Airbender was able to recapture the audience that grew up with the series, as well as gain a new audience when it came out on Netflix during the pandemic. And now we're seeing more adaptations of Avatar through the movies and through the Netflix live action series. I wouldn't be surprised if when something gets discovered or rediscovered for the first time, that people are really gravitating to wanting to see more, and then eventually studios are saying, wow, I think that we should be able to take advantage of that and start releasing some more stuff. And look what happened with Nightmare Before Christmas. It didn't get the recognition until over a decade after its release. Then, merchandise and books and video games started coming out. And even still to this day, more stuff is coming out for it. So, yeah, I would say that, there might be some hope for a prequel series in the future.
yeah. So, I was just thinking, what do we think of Santa Claus in this movie?
I mean, he doesn't really get too much of a focus. I mean, other than just being kidnapped and then finally being freed. So, yeah, I mean, I can understand Santa Claus being just absolutely frustrated with the fact that, it's Christmas Eve. He has so much work to do. He's kidnapped. He's about to be boiled and eaten by Oogie Boogie. And then when he finally sees Jack, he's like, just let me do what I need to do, man. Just come on. Just give me a break already. It's bad enough that I have to give presents to millions of billions of children, and then all of a sudden you kidnap me, and then I have to, retroactively do all the mess that you created.
Yeah, it's just I think with this particular Santa Claus, we're seeing like another side of him. Like he's not like all jolly and all happy or anything like that. Like he is really pissed off that like he's basically had nearly Christmas taken away from him on one particular year by a guy who has no idea what the hell he's doing.
Exactly.
Effectively.
Yeah.
So he's got every right to be angry. I think
Yeah,
in that
of
regard.
course.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
mean, how would you feel if you were kidnapped, about to be eaten, and then everything around you that you hold dear, or that, that you do for a living, gets retroactively destroyed?
yeah, I mean, how are we going to celebrate We All Love Aaron Meta Day?
Yeah, exactly. How we're going to be celebrating Aramet today? All the fish and chips are gone, and there's, all the soccer players are being tied up and held in the closet, and all the microphones are being strung up by trees. I mean, what are we going to do?
Yeah, exactly. So, like, yeah, I'd be pretty angry if Jack Skellington took over Aaron Met today. Yeah. So, yeah. So you can only sympathize with this Santa Claus, can't you? Even though you
Yeah,
don't
of
really see
course you
like the
can.
jolly
Yeah.
side of him, really.
He's essentially trying to do his job. Then he gets kidnapped. He's about to be eaten. And then all the kids that he's supposed to give toys to for being so good all year is being frightened by snakes, spiders, disheveled heads. Holly is, no, Reeves are strangling them. So, yeah, I mean, he has every right to be pissed off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In regards to the music, in regards to the characters, in regards to like the whole setup, and regards to like just the Night Before Christmas as a whole, it's a brilliant movie.
It is.
Yeah, and it's still even beloved to this day, and people even still ask for like when there's going to be more. And I mean, we talked about possibilities of like there being more, but who knows? I mean, like, is it a movie where like they probably just think, oh well, this in itself is like enough to keep. I mean, there have been considerations in regards to a possible sequel. There's since 2002, would you
Yes.
believe? So who knows? Like,
Yeah, I mean, this is Disney we're talking about, so eventually they are going to be doing some more stuff with it. I mean, we've seen all the live action remakes, we've seen the sequels like Hocus Pocus 2 that we talked about last year. Yeah, I think at some point in time we're going to be talking about either a sequel or a prequel to Nightmare Before Christmas. It's all in due time.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so any final words to say about this movie right before we conclude it?
I mean, I was going to say, like, if you don't see Nightmare Before Christmas, what have you done? What have you done for like the last, couple of Christmases in your life, or even the Halloweens in your life? Go see it. Like,
Yeah.
like you got a couple of months to say, oh yeah, well, it's between Halloween and Christmas, so at least I can go see it now. And I believe like they've done like HD upgrades to it as well, and so like and it still holds up even when it's like in HD and stuff. So like seriously, go off and see it. It's brilliant.
Yeah, it is brilliant. Go watch it on Disney Plus or wait until it airs on ABC Family whenever they air it around the 31 days of Halloween or the 25 days of Christmas. Like, seriously, just go watch it. It's still amazing.
And by the way, this movie wasn't nominated for an Academy Award in special effects, so it wasn't like put in the animation category like other movies were. But unfortunately, it lost out to a pretty good contender. And do you know who that contender was?
Jurassic Park.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's really difficult because Jurassic Park was able to revolutionize animatronics mixed with CGI and practical effects. I mean, like, even still to this day, Jurassic Park has set the standard for that. So that's a pretty hard contender. I mean, I do agree that it should have won, but still, I mean, Nightmare Before Christmas is still a fantastic film in its own right.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're not going to start like a whole debate, like what's better, Jurassic Park or Nightmare Before
Oh
Christmas.
no, of course
we're not going to start
you
that.
can't really compare the two.
You don't not really know, like one's for like for a particular time, and then there's another one. If anything, I think Jurassic Park's a summer blockbuster, and I think Nightmare Before Christmas, I think is a Halloween/Christmas movie.
Exactly.
So, like,
yeah,
they have their places.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so they're two. It's like apples and oranges. You can't really compare the two.
Yeah. Well, one thing I'd be interested to see maybe in the future, like you keep in mind, like we've only been to Christmas land, and maybe we've kind of touched on Easter land, if you will. But there's also Thanksgiving, Independence Day, Valentine's Day, and St. Patrick's Day land. So like plenty of ideas for sequels, guys.
Yeah, I would love to see Jack Skellington walking around in St. Patrick's Day land and seeing the leprechaun and learning about the concept of rainbows and gold. That would be funny.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the Valentine's Day one could be a chick flick.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, he and Sally can go to Valentine's Day land, learn more about love, and all the ups and downs that love creates. That'll be a fun chick flick.
Yeah, imagine that. Like I mean, dare I say, like it'd be kind of horrible to do, but like Jack Skellington and Sally Skellington are on the rocks, and they went to Valentine's Day land to kind of like you understand like what love is and why they got together in the first place.
Better than Flintstones on the rocks, am I right?
I mean, yeah, definitely. But I mean, I wasn't trying to hint at that, but I know what I set that up, didn't I?
Yeah.
Shame on me. I mean, like, I guess I guess the Thanksgiving movie. You know what? This could go in order actually. Like, you could have the Valentine's Day one for like the beginning of their relationship. You could have the Thanksgiving one for when they have the family. as it's hinted, like in the epilogue. And maybe you could have St. Patrick's Day when Jack just wants have a day out with his friends, I guess. And then Independence Day, I don't know. Maybe it's just like going to be a sequel that just exists just for making money.
I guess we can't have an Independence Day, film with aliens in it because that's already been done.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can't really do. What are you gonna do for Independence Day, line? Effectively, just like the American flag and apple pie, and they just go to America effectively. Is that what's gonna happen?
I don't know.
That'd
I
be a
can't
weird
really think of
sequel.
anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, I think we
Okay.
told this movie
I
out,
think we've gone too far. So yeah, if you haven't seen this movie, please just check it out. It's still fantastic even after 30 years later.
Yeah, definitely. And by the way, if you haven't, we're not making fun of you if you haven't seen this movie. Generally, if you haven't seen this movie, go see it and then come back to the comment section and tell us what you think of it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Please let us know in the comments if this is literally your first time watching Nightmare Before Christmas and what did you think of it? Or if you're one of those people who've seen it like 100 times, then let us know about what makes this film so special to you.
And by the way, do you want to see a prequel or a sequel to The Nightmare Before Christmas? We'd like to hear from that too.
Absolutely. All right, so that concludes our discussion of Nightmare Before Christmas. So tune in next time as we're going to be skipping about a decade or so with talking about Tim Burton's next animated stop motion film, and that is Corpse Bride.
Okay, until then, bye-bye.
Bye.